Well, my bags are packed. Things are loaded in the car. It is bright and early this morning. It is about 2:30 and we are going to be heading out for the airport now. Very excited. Flying and traveling through airports can be very stressful, even for people who have normal vision. For somebody like me, who is visually impaired, it just increases the stress. Now, thankfully on this trip, I was traveling with friends. If I was going to give some advice, that would be the first thing. Travel with somebody. Obviously, that can't always happen, and I have traveled by myself and had success. I have traveled by myself and accidentally wandered out of security because I couldn't see what was happening. So overall, navigating through the airports, the signs were not too hard to read. Again, I still kind of had to be kind of close to it in order to read like which gates are in this section of the hallway or things like that. But thankfully they are good contrast and they're pretty big fonts, so I could still read them. The gate numbers, most of them were pretty easy to read. Some of them were, there was one airport, and I'm trying to remember which airport it was, but they were a little bit more difficult to read because they were on lit screens, or they were on lit signs, and it was kind of hard to read those. Thankfully, with technology, it's becoming a little bit easier. We flew on Delta, and Delta has an app. And one of the things that Delta's app has is airport maps, which is kind of nice because it will even GPS you to a location. And that was really cool because you can look and see, what kind of restaurants are nearby and things like that. So you don't have to go wandering off to find out what's available. Because that is how I accidentally wandered out of security. I was off looking for a place to get coffee, and I went down the wrong hallway. So technology is really making things a little bit easier. Now, the map itself and the app itself wasn't exactly visually impaired friendly. However, my magnifier thing on my phone, I was able to use that, and that kind of made up the difference. The other thing that the app allowed me to do was to mark on there that I had a visual impairment. And that was kind of cool. One of the flights, the flight attendant came to me specifically and asked me, if there was an emergency, would I need help? And she specifically told me, here's where your emergency exits are. If there's an emergency, this is the one that's closest to you. And that was kind of nice. I've not really had that very much in the past. I think one other time I was on a flight and we had told them that I was legally blind, and so they kind of came and talked to me. I was also able to mark on there that I had mobility issues and would need help getting to the next gate. I was kind of just playing around with the feature because I wasn't sure what it would do, and I kind of, after thinking about it, I said to myself, this is probably wheelchair assistance, and I don't really need wheelchair assistance. So I took it off, but one of the flights I left it on there on accident, and sure enough, there was somebody waiting when I got off the plane with a wheelchair, and they would have taken me directly to my gate. Now, that's actually kind of helpful because if you're trying to get to a gate and you don't know where you're going and you don't have a lot of time, that would be really helpful that they could just take you to where you're going. So I did not do it because I was traveling with a group and I could travel with them and get to the next gate. But it was nice to see that feature worked out. I have flown with other airlines and tried to make accommodations, and it did not go very well. So it might be one of these things where there's certain airlines that would be a little bit easier and more accommodating, but that's just my experience for this particular trip. the seat numbers are actually really difficult to read. Quite often, I can't read those. This particular flight, like most of our flights, the seat numbers were actually up above, and there was no chance I was going to read that. If they're down below, they're right at eye level, and so I can't always read them exactly, but I can usually make out the number enough to kind of have an idea of where I'm going. So that would have been more of a challenge for me. But again, I was traveling with people, so I kind of was able to just follow their lead, you know. Things like baggage claim, I normally try to have something really noticeable that's very distinctive so I can see my bag from a little bit of a distance. And I forgot to do that on this trip, but again, we had a group of us, so we were able to help each other out, finding each other's bags and stuff. One thing that I normally do when I'm flying is they always ask if people who need more assistance would like to get on the plane. I usually take advantage of that because, first of all, it's a lot of stress when you're trying to get on and then you're trying to get yourself situated and there's a line of people behind you. But second of all, I like to ensure that my bag, if I have one up above, is right above me, because if you get on a little bit later on, you might not have space right above your head, and that's kind of a little bit stressful to me, because if I need something out of there, I don't want to be trying to figure out where was my bag and how far up, and I don't like to get up and walk around on the plane unless I really have to, because my balance is not very good. Also, I'm just afraid of not making it back to my seat and getting lost coming back to my seat. Like, I am the kind of person that will walk past my row and be like, do. I personally take advantage of that because it's just a lot easier for me to not worry about that. That is something that you can do. You can go ahead and board the flight on that earlier, people who need more time. Some flights will let your whole group go. This trip, they were going to let our whole group go. We didn't all always do it, but some flights I've done, I think Southwest, I've done that before, and they said one person can get on with you, and so that's worked out as well. So that's something that is an option for you. In the end, after a long day of traveling, we finally made it to Vancouver. Stay tuned for my next video because I will be showing you some of the things that we went and saw there in Vancouver and some of the neat aspects of Vancouver, because Vancouver is a very interesting place. This is just the beginning of this trip. We kind of tour around Vancouver, and then the next video will be getting on the cruise ship. So stay tuned because there'll be some exciting videos coming up next.